secondary consideration. Um, One of the things you talked about in last year that I thought was really interesting was, and I don't mean to rehash the whole Batman versus Superman debate, but you talked quite a bit about where you thought Superman as a franchise had sort of strayed over the years and why it had been so sort of difficult to get that going in a way when Batman seems to have adapted pretty naturally to the screen. I was wondering if you could talk a little about that and what the first Superman script was like that you were talking about.
Oh, let's see. Let me go this far. I believe that there's a terrific Superman reboot coming with a lot of people who are very, very bright and a lot of people who really, truly care about the character. That said, I always wondered how you could do 7, 8, 9 Superman movies where the villain is Lex Luthor. I always wanted to personally see a Superman movie that, well, let me do it this way. I was a huge Trekkie. When the TV show was on, I was bombarding NBC with letters to renew it when they said they were going to cancel it. I was a huge Star Trek fan. When I couldn't wait till the movie came out, the first movie, and I ran to see it. This was like a $30 million production. It was a huge cost back then. I was bored to death. It was a date movie, for God's sake. And I wanted a Star Trek movie. They figured that out, and they came back with The Wrath of Khan. That was a real kick-ass movie that was steeped in the lore of Star Trek, that was respectful and brought us back into that world. I would love to see Superman have his Wrath of Khan kind of movie now. And not worry about it being a date movie, and not worrying about the fact that, well, Superman naturally is not dark like Batman. You know, one of the evils of Hollywood is you have a big success, and everybody says, oh, well, if Batman, The Dark Knight's working, then all comic book movies must be dark. And I'm telling you, I've been in meetings, and that's what I've been told. And I said, my God, if it was up to you guys, you'd be doing Casper the Unfriendly Ghost right now. I said, what you need to do is to be true to the integrity of the character. That's what's necessary. And I believe that's where Superman's going.
Well, it's time to open it up to you all. And thank you, Rayscape. Thank you, Filmcom, Andy Van Roon, for helping put this together. Who's got some questions? Yes.
Hi,
Oh, that arm went up really fast and strong. I'm like ready to duck.
I just came from work, so I've been, looking forward to this all day, and I didn't get to see you earlier, so I've been wanting to ask you. David Goyer is a talented writer. He's written some good movies. He wrote the original Batman Begins script, I presume, and it says in the credits that he wrote the story for all the Batman movies, and then Christopher Nolan did this. But he also wrote the movie Jumper, as well as the recent Ghost Rider movie. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it's kind of a travesty. And he's also written the Blade trilogy, and I'm wondering, he's credited as writing the new Superman movie, and Christopher and Jonathan Nolan are also involved in that script. I'm wondering if, when David Goyer pitched his script, was it altered heavily by the Nolans, or what's going on there, and how involved are the Nolan brothers in the new Superman movie compared to David Goyer?
I would love to talk to you about Superman, but I am totally not involved in that. So I have no insight to share with you. I wish I could. I'm over in Gotham City and hiding out in the Batcave, so I'm really not aware of too much. But let me just say one thing. Making movies is a creative process that often involves many cooks. A lot of people get involved in a lot of ways. And I don't simply mean the writer, the director, the producer, but also the success of a movie depends on this mixture with the music composer, the cinematographer, the gaffer, the special effects guy, the stunt coordinators, the actors. Everybody has such an important part in the creative process. I always wonder, how the hell do movies actually get made and actually turn out well when there are so many people involved who must do their job and do their job well in order to make it work? To me, it's one of the daily miracles that I witness, and it's amazing how often it comes out that way. So, you know, it is a creative process that involves a number of people. But when you've got a director who has an understanding of a particular character, and you know and you see has a passion for the character, and then has a vision that he presents for a character, and then you see proven to you in black and white or living color that he knows how to execute that vision. Well, you know, at that point in time, you sit back, you become the greatest cheerleader in the world. That's a wonderful thing when that happens.
We have time for one more question.
Michael, what was you mentioned that, you know, you had really lean time, but what was your greatest challenge, and how did you overcome it to bounce back and become successful?
Sometimes you need a guardian angel. My guardian angel was my father-in-law, who founded the Cincinnati Eye Institute. His name is Dr. Morris Osher. He's no longer with us, one of the wisest men I ever met. I had my back against the wall. I was at a point in time where I was doing everything to bring in money, hoping to hold on by my fingertips till the Batman thing could happen. And I was running out of options. And I had a big deal for a miniseries at CBS, and at the last possible second, it aborted. And I had nothing coming in. I was counting and literally getting a check in like that day or the next day that would cover me. And I ran out of options. I had nowhere else to turn. My father-in-law came out and he said, you know, you went to law school, you were a lawyer for 3.5 years, now you need to do what you need to do to support your family. You've got a young son here now, you've got to go back and be a lawyer, and you can't think you failed because you tried, and trying is very, very important. And on the basis of that, I said, I know, but you know, I am so close, I know I'm so close, I've got this going on, I've created this cartoon show, I'm waiting to see what happens. He said, Michael, I want you to tell me honestly, very specifically, how much time do you think until you have, don't tell me a deal, don't tell me a contract, don't tell me a signed contract, till you have a check in your hand for 6 figures? And I said, 5 months. He said, you're 5 months away. I go, yeah. He said, all right, I am going to pay your bills for the next 5 months. And 5 months from right now, 6 p.m. that day, if you do not have a check in your hand to show me for 6 figures, you will then agree that you tried your hardest and you will go be a lawyer and take care of your family. Well, I couldn't thank him enough. Everybody I was working on at that time, during that time period, knew about this deal. And at that time I had created a cartoon series that was on, it wound up running for 5 years in the 80s called Dinosaurs, which some of you who grew up in that era might remember. And I was trying to get that and other things going. Well, 5 months later, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they planned this. The guys over at Deke and the animation studio and the people who work on it, they planned this whole thing. The FedEx truck pulls up with the signed contracts for a Dinosaur show and a check for 6 figures. And I was able to pay my father-in-law back. And he gave me the gift of time, and that was the time I needed to hold on by those fingertips to get to Batman. That's what it took.
Speaking of the gift of time, we've been told that we have a few more minutes for some more questions. Yes?
What about the book signing?
I won't leave here until I sign everybody's books. And if
Wow.
I have to hitchhike over to the thing, I will hitchhike over.
I'll give you a ride.
Jim, let me just say something. There's nothing more important than this right now over at the Nashville Film Festival. So you stay as long as you want to.
Thanks, Andy. There you go. This is the man who calls the shots in this town, I'll tell you that.
David?
How do you feel about the portrayal of Batman like in the Brave and the Bold animated series? As a Silver Age fanboy, to me, some of the most rewarding projects outside of the film has been the animation, particularly the DC animation.
Some of the most wonderful stories in the history of Batman have taken place in the animated material, both in the series and the direct-to-DVD animated movies that are coming out. If you look at the work of Bruce Timm, Eric Radomski, Paul Dini, Alan Burnett, there are some great story arcs where you really get into the emotion. It gives Batman a chance in the media to expose all the other supervillains. and give them a chance to shine. It's critically important, and specifically about Batman Brave and Bold. That's a TV animated series aimed at a younger audience. But I say it is so important that we have some Batman material aimed at kids, so that they can grow up with, maybe we start them on that great old DVD, Batman Meets Scooby-Doo. And then it's okay with me if you have young kids and you want to show them the Batman show from the 60s, that's okay. And then bring them along with this kind of Batman animation today, until they get to the point when they're, say, 13 years old or however old, where their sensibilities are stable enough to be exposed to one of our Mad movies. So I think it's really important.
I recently read that Warner Brothers plans on doing another reboot of Batman after Christopher Nolan's series is over. And I just want to know, have you been contacted or approached, or are you involved in that process?
I live in the present. And thanks for asking. I can't.
Yes.
Yes. I'm just curious that in 1997, after the disaster we all refer to as Batman and Robin, if maybe you had a second vow to get Batman back to where he was in, say, 1989, and the process it took and the road it took, because as a fan, and I've been a fan for over 2 decades, okay? I mean, I was a fan as a little kid before the '89 movie came out. And I tell you, those 8 years were some of the darkest. We had the animation, thank God, but I tell you, it was a long road, those 8 years. So I was wondering.
So I'm guessing the nipple suit was your idea.
Yeah, right. Let's talk not about Batman for a moment. Let's talk generally about the motion picture industry, okay? Everybody got that? This is going to be a general conversation about the motion picture industry. What used to be movie studios today are often international conglomerates. They own many companies, they have their fingers in many pies. Some of them own theme parks, some own toy companies, they're all over the map. Sometimes, when you have corporate structures like that, people become fixated on such things as merchandising, toys, and Happy Meals. When that occurs, and filmmakers are dictated to that it's important that films be made light and bright and kiddie-friendly and family-friendly in order to cater to the licensees. And when things happen like, well, the toy companies want as many superheroes and supervillains thrown into a movie as you can jam in. Oh, and make sure everyone has 2 costume changes and 2 vehicles. Well, my contention is what happens then is the tail is wagging the dog, and you are not making movies, you are making 2-hour infomercials for toys. That doesn't serve anyone well. I always believe that if you bring in filmmakers who have great visions and passion and allow them to make great films, you are going to sell toys anyway. And that, I think, is critical. So you can imagine how happy I am, for example, in our case specifically at Warner's, where we have people that so get it that they turn the keys to the franchise to someone like Christopher Nolan and allow him to restore Batman to where he needs to be and where he should always be.